What is happening, y'all? Welcome back to the Media Goose channel. It is I, the Media Goose, your friend Ryan, and the goose is loose, baby. And I am coming at you today to talk about Season 2, Episode 5 of Daredevil Born Again, The Grand Design. This was a devastating episode to watch. Last week ending with the cliffhanger of Vanessa having the glass lodged in her head, not knowing if she was going to make it. Well, this episode starts with Vanessa, and it is her and Wilson in all white on a beach. And you hear the water and the ocean, and it's beautiful. And then you see the chaos of Wilson bringing Vanessa to the hospital, and Wilson is a child. Wilson is a big, bumbling child, yelling, being in the way of people. It's sad for him, but it almost felt like a child reacting to losing their mother. And I do think there is something to be said about the relationship between Vanessa and Wilson, and how Wilson is still looking for his mother in his partners. And there was something about Vanessa that drew him in that way. But then we get to Powell saying that they have Daredevil and Bullseye surrounded, but okay, yeah, right. So that ends up being the church where they show up later. But then, something really important, BB shows up to the hospital where Daniel is. And she tries to get info out of him. And Daniel's like, "Are you kidding me? You're doing this now?" And then she goes, "You're right, I'm sorry," and she hugs him. BB's manipulating the shit out of Daniel. I've been the person who, I don't know, it's like the pretty girl batting her eyes, and she hugged him to make him tell her more because he wanted to be on a date with her, so she knows she has that power over him. There's a lot of manipulation happening there. And Daniel gives in and tells BB that Vanessa's in critical condition. She played him. And then we cut to Vanessa's mind. And it's her first time when she saw the rabbit in the snowstorm painting. And she talks about how if the right person walks through the doors of that gallery and sees the profound emptiness their profound emptiness reflected back at them, they'll definitely buy it. She was talking about Wilson before they ever knew each other. And then to the other dynamic of this episode, Daredevil and Bullseye. And Bullseye says he's dying. He's experienced it enough to know. And Bullseye starts talking about how his scales are settled. Really brought me back to Moon Knight when they were trying to settle his scales before Judgment. And everything with Daredevil and Bullseye in this episode, really, it's about morality. It's about morality. It's about penance. Matt says maybe tonight's penance is for both of us. Because he knew he's trying to save Bullseye because he tried to kill him. He lost sight of his anchor. His no-kill rule is as big a deal to him as it is to Batman. And we have seen Daredevil conflicted by that, wanting to kill Fisk. So the fact that he threw Bullseye off that roof really affected Matt. I mean, he gave up being Daredevil. And then we start the Foggy flashbacks, and my goodness, these were powerful. I really wonder if they hired a director who directed the Netflix show to direct those segments, because it really felt like the Netflix show. In the lighting, the saturation of light, in the dialogue, everything about the flashbacks felt so nostalgic and reverent of the Netflix series in a beautiful way. And they meet the guy that they're defending. They realize Foggy knows him. He starts calling Foggy some names, and the guy's made out to be a real asshole. And then we get a Wesley flashback. Wesley, one of the best characters ever in this show. And it's Wesley bringing up the idea of the art gallery, because Wilson is trying to diversify his portfolio when he brings up Bitcoin, talking about how everything that went down with the Russians, they need to be modern men. They need to evolve with the times. And seeing Wesley really shook me, really messed me up. That character is incredible. And then we're back to Matt and Bullseye collapses. And the Foggy flashback, where they find the clerical error in their client's files, which would give them a get-out-of-jail-free card. And they debate the morality of their client, knowing that if they send him to jail, he dies. And Matt is on the side of killing him. Matt Murdock, Daredevil, is on the side of, that's not our problem. He deserves to be in jail, and whatever happens to him there, it's not my problem. And it's Foggy who talks about mercy and redemption. The same speech that Daredevil gave to Punisher in season 2 of the Netflix show, Foggy gave to Matt. This was a beautiful, the way they layered in these flashbacks. This episode was called The Grand Design. It almost could have been called Foggy's Mercy, because it's Foggy's mercy that sends Matt back to save Bullseye. And then we find out that BB leaked the news about Vanessa. And this is leading somewhere. I'm kind of starting to wonder if Daniel is going to give Buck BB's name. And then we're back to Vanessa and them on the beach. The shots of their hands holding, the shots of Wilson's eyes with the lights coming in. This episode was so artistically moving in the style of the shots and the lighting. It was so powerful. Everything with Vanessa felt like the soul before it dies, kind of going through the final walk of life before you're accepted into heaven. And the lighting reflects that. Then we get Daniel and Buck. And this felt like Michael Gandolfini paying homage to his father. This felt like a Sopranos scene. Daniel, did I do something? Tell me what I did. I'm sorry. Am I in trouble? And then Buck goes in this store, and Daniel starts the car to leave Buck there because he thinks he's going to die. And then he doesn't. And Buck had just mentioned before that there are certain moments in life that decide the kind of man that you are. And that was a moment where Daniel almost acted out of cowardice, but he didn't. He stayed in that car to potentially meet his maker. So it was honestly a test by Buck to see if Daniel would leave. And the shot right before they cut away from Michael Gandolfini in that car, and he's just like looking down, somber, and his lips quiver. Oh my God, it moved me to my core. Just a little thing of a lip quiver. And it rocked me. It was a beautiful acting performance. And then it cuts from Daniel in the car to Fisk in a car. And it's Buck and Wesley, a character that a lot of people felt was like a ripoff of Wesley. They connected them, they tied it all back. And this interaction was amazing. Seeing these two interact was so damn cool. And then it cuts to the client, and you expect it to be Buck arriving to kill him, but it's Foggy. Foggy showed up to this man's house and gave him the $1,700 him and Matt had been saving up. Foggy gives this man a chance at redemption. The thing that Matt always preaches. Foggy instilled that in him. And then Bullseye and Daredevil in the church. This moved me. It was so somber. When Bullseye said, "Brother, we are who we are." The interactions between Matt and Dex in this episode were so real. And then the AVTF arrives. Matt says, "I can't save us both. I'm sorry. I tried." And he leaves Bullseye there to die and to be found. Not even to die, to be tortured by Fisk. And we're cutting back and forth between those scenes of Matt and Foggy and the childhood friend. And this rough, gruff asshole. Foggy brought the vulnerability out of him. Foggy made him a person. Foggy saw him as a person. And when that guy says, when you and my brother would have the sleepovers, I never had a friend like that. This was so emotionally moving. Eldon Henson, beautiful job. And he saved Bullseye for Foggy, even though he killed Foggy. And Matt brings Bullseye to their hideout, and Karen's there. Karen ain't gonna be on the same side of this that Matt is. Karen's gonna want Bullseye dead. And then we are back with Wilson and Vanessa, and she's awake. And she asks Wilson for pineapple juice, and then Wilson asks a nurse, and Vanessa says, "Why did you talk to her like that? You almost made her cry. I've never seen you like this." And it's a really, scared Vanessa. And then it goes back to her getting her pineapple juice. And she asks Wilson to tell her the story of how they met. And when he does, she says it wasn't luck. It was the grand design. And Bullseye, a minute before that, had also mentioned the grand design. This episode was so beautifully written, was so beautifully paced out in the way that they changed the perspectives you were experiencing. And Wilson, he had her back. Vanessa came back only for her to die. You hear her flatline, and you see Vincent D'Onofrio give just such a tender performance before Vanessa goes. He's vulnerable. And the heartbreak of him realizing that Vanessa, when she starts to ask, "Tell me the story of how we met again," and then she has her final moments, and watching Wilson, he's about to become a monster, So seeing this side of the humanity of Wilson Fisk was so... I feel grateful to have seen that performance from Vincent D'Onofrio throughout this whole episode, even in the flashbacks. When he first talked about art, he said, oh yeah, art. The pretensions and airs of posing, and to hear him talk about art otherwise, you see the effect that Vanessa had on Wilson and what's going to happen now that she's gone. This was an amazing episode with Wilson and Vanessa, with Matt and Dex, the flashbacks of Matt and Foggy, the flashbacks of Buck and Wesley. This was an excellent episode. Everything with Daniel and Buck. What a just incredibly written episode. And where you thought last week ended with Vanessa's death, it didn't. It dragged out for a week. And now Wilson is going to fall off the deep end. I was so moved by this episode, y'all. It felt like an homage to the Netflix show. A tip of the cap. And they executed it perfectly. This episode, for me, I know it was called The Grand Design, but in my heart, this episode is called Foggy's Mercy. This episode is who Foggy Nelson is. Matt was arguing for a man to die. Imagine that. With everything we know about Matt in the show now, Matt was saying, this guy should just die. And it was Foggy. It was Foggy who pushed the other way. Whew. This was a beautiful episode. And an episode that I think will be looked back on even more fondly when we go as dark as this show is going to go now. We'll look back at this as the breaking point. And I continue to wonder what Karen's fate will be in this season. Because Wilson lost his tether to reality. Will Matt lose his? There's a lot of stuff that's been spoiled by the brand new Day trailer, by a lot. By actors posting online. But I'm ignoring all of that and just staying focused on what this show is delivering. And that's the best television in Marvel history. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Foggy's redemption, Foggy's mercy, the penance, morality. This was a beautiful episode. Thank you to the writers, the director, the showrunner, the performers. Thank you for a beautiful episode of this show. The Goose is out. Hi.